Hello, my name is Chris Silvius, and this is the Aftershow. We're going to be up late in the night talking about whether or not dinosaur and human footprints were found in the same layer of strata together. And I will claim right here, right now, that they have indeed been found. Okay, so left to right, consecutive patterns of human tracks intersecting dinosaur tracks in an area that is well known for dinosaur tracks. Okay, what's the controversy is whether or not human tracks have been found among them. So, significant evidence, and we're going to start with a little opening statement that I've constructed here. The theory that man evolved from the primates is accepted as fact by most of the scientific community. However, if normal human footprints have been found in rock that predates human evolution, this provides physical evidence that the theory of human evolution is incorrect. And I would think that that would be a fair claim to make as long as I can back it up with some evidence. So I'm going to share the screen, and we're going to start by looking at what is known as the Burdick track. Okay, much to be disputed. People who may be tuning in and already are familiar with this track, like any of the tracks that I'm going to show you, okay, they've been looked at, okay. No peer-reviewed scientific journal has covered this. Of course, they're going to lose their job if they even publish it. But, what you'll find on the internet, which is what I'm going to show you, I'm going to share the screen. What you're going to find is a lot of controversy over this track, saying that it's a hoax. And then the other side, which seems to suggest that it is legitimate. So let's look at the Burdick track. And I'll say a few words before we get into it. But the Burdick track, first thing that pops up, of course, is the Creation Evidence Museum. It's a museum in Glen Rose, Texas, where these are on. This is on display. So you go to Glen Rose, Texas, Creation Evidence Museum. Director Carl Ball. He's the owner of the museum. It is a human footprint in Cretaceous limestone. So it was a print that was excavated, okay, and put on display. So you can go see it. You can touch it for yourself. We know that it came from the area. Cordell Van Hoos from Dallas Lapidary. He's a Dallas Lapidary expert, meaning stones and gems, and he did a cross-sectioning of the track and concluded that it was a depression in the rock, impossible to carve because it was made before the rock had crystallized. So the dinosaur and the humans, they stepped in the mud before it, while it was still mud, and then later it hardened, preserving the shape of their feet. So the rock shows clear pressure disturbance under the heels and toes. And Dr. Don Patton, who's a geologist, helped determine the original location of the cutout. The Paluxy River limestone is known for dinosaur footprints. That's not disputed. The controversy is whether or not human footprints have been found there in this specific print, the Burdick track. Don Patton is a geologist, and he helped determine the actual location of where it was. So the strata, it matches, and the overall print is legitimate. People will dispute it, of course, but they're not going to go through these tests themselves and then go get government grants to actually research it. Okay, they're just going to promote it, as false on their little platforms that they have online. But nobody legitimate has actually covered this issue, objectively, because if they did, there would be a competing model against which people could choose whether or not they want to believe evolution or not. And, that's not what the scientists get paid to do. They get paid to promote the theory of evolution, or else they don't have their prestigious positions. All that work that they did for a degree is going to be for nothing, because there's an established paradigm built on billions of dollars of, taxpayers' money, okay, government grants that go to science, and it all helps to promote this one worldview. So that's the way that it is right now. And until creationists end up getting more time and a lot more money and resources, there's not ever going to be a competing model. But I tell you, if there was a competing model, you know, evolution is just a theory surviving on tax dollars alone. If they didn't have a monopoly over the government research programs on science, there would be other competing models, and nobody would, everybody would basically stop believing in evolution theory and accept some other models. That doesn't mean that they're going to accept a creationist view, but, they're definitely going to reject evolution theory because it's dumb. So, anyways, the Burdick track. So, we'll not go to the creation evidence. We want to remain, we want to go to the talk origins. This is a good place to go because they're going to dispute it, and we want an objective view of this. So let's just go ahead and go to talk origins, since we're not going to find any peer-reviewed literature on this topic because they can't publish it. They're not going to, they have to protect their worldview with a propaganda machine. So that means no views that can oppose it, and we just promote all the evidence that's for it and really don't, so that's the way that works. It's one-sided media. Uh, so, introduction. Many creationists once claimed that fossilized human footprints occurred alongside dinosaur tracks in Paluxy River near Glen Rose, Texas, allegedly providing dramatic evidence against the theory of evolution and the standard geologic timetable. However, in recent years, a number of critical studies have shown that the man tracks are due to a variety of misidentified phenomena, including elongate metatarsal dinosaur tracks, erosional markings, vague depressions of uncertain origin, and a smaller number of doctored or carved specimens, most of the latter occurring on loose blocks of stone. In the wake of mounting evidence against the man track claims, most creationists have largely abandoned the man track claims, although a few persistent individuals, including Carl Ball and Don Patton, continue to promote such claims. This paper focuses on a loose track slab called the Burdick track, or Burdick print. So let's go down to, we're not going to read through the entire history of the Burdick track. We want to go to this one right here. The Burdick track is on a tan limestone slab, about 18 inches long, 13 inches wide, about 5 inches thick, and the print depression itself is a giant size, 15 inches long by 7 to 19 inches, 7.5 inches wide, an inch deep at the deepest parts, the ball and the toe. So it says that the general shape of the print depression is not that of a genuine human print. The track boundaries and features are distinct, eliminating the possibility that abnormalities are due to slippage, turning, or mud slumping, but not anatomically correct. The length of the print alone is not necessarily an objection, since the foot links are occasionally encountered. However, the track properties and other features are very abnormal, even for a 15-inch foot. The print is too wide at the ball, too narrow at the heel, giving the print an almost triangular shape overall. The link to ball width ratio, and then they give that range. It's not normal for human tracks. Other differences from a normal clear human print are discussed below. The toe depressions are far too long. The big toe is too narrow. The lengths of the outermost toes are especially abnormal, being nearly twice the expected length. Also, okay, so we're going to get into a little bit of this. Let's see. There was a paleontologist. Let me stop the share screen. Paleontologist by the name of Roland T. Bird. He was an eyewitness testimony of a human track that he saw on display in Texas, with dinosaur tracks that were excavated from the same area. So I had all these dinosaur tracks on display, and then there was this human track in another display, and he actually, in an article, Natural History, 1939, called Thunder in His Footsteps, he gave his eyewitness testimony of these tracks that he saw. And then there was a geologist who actually traced that original print down to a from the original store in Texas to a small museum in Arizona. And then he wrote an article called When Giants Roamed the Earth and provided photographic evidence of that original print. Billy Caldwell is another geologist who, and we're talking about the same print, okay, the Burdick track, or actually, this is the, not the Burdick track, but another track. We'll get into why I'm going over this in a second, because it pertains to, their disputation of the Burdick track. So, Billy Caldwell, another geologist, he purchased a human print cast of a Paluxy limestone track on display at Creation Evidence Museum. The original was sold and last reported at New York's World Fair in 1965. So there's another geologist who, claims to have seen, and he has the actual cast of the original track that was excavated from Paluxy River. A guy named Cecil Daughtry wrote a book called Valley of the Giants in 1967. That was the fourth edition in 1967. And he gave a description, locations, and photographs of all of the human tracks that were there at that time, intersecting dinosaur footprints. So let's go back to Talk Origins. Let's review what they said. Share the screen again. So they said that there is all these problems. The depressions are far too long, the big toe is too narrow, it's too wide of the ball, you need to do the measurements, and it's not according to what we see in modern humans. But these are, well known by geologists. You have tons of eyewitness testimonies, and they examined these for themselves and concluded that it was a human footprint. It's like a professional geologist, a professional paleontologist. These people, this is what they do for a living. And so I don't understand why you can make the claim, like all these different claims, that it's not a human footprint. I mean, it's you look at footprints today, okay, that are found from 21,000 years old in the earliest firm evidence for humans in America's footprints. They show that people must have arrived here before the last ice age. So they're dated at 21,000 years. In the Greek island of Crete in 2002, there were footprints that were dated to be 6 million years old. Human footprints that were 900,000 years old in Haysborough over in Europe. So the first known human presence in Britain. And the undisputed footprints, like I'm talking about, okay, the date's not even disputed on these. So they come up with other theories to accommodate it with, the theory of human evolution. But the footprints that they discover today all over the world are not disputed. And they have been, the Burdick track has been subjected to the same kind of tests. And the other tracks that we're gonna go over, the same kind of tests as any of the footprints that we have discovered recently in modern, archaeology is basically what it is. The same kind of tests. So specifically, the Burdick track was subjected, to a cross-sectioning by a lapidary expert. This guy's an expert of stones and gems, and he knows what he's seeing. He knows that it wasn't a carving. The depressions were made before the rock had hardened, and that there's clear disturbance, pressure disturbance under the heels and under the toes. And to claim, that this is not a human track when it looks like any of the tracks that have been subjected to the same kind of test to determine that it's a legitimate human track. There's no reason to question its legitimacy. For the sake of time, we're going to move on to the next track, which is called the Delk print. So we want to go to a skeptic website and see what they have to say of the Delk print. Here's a good one, richarddawkins.net. I bet that's a pretty skeptical website, that would dispute the Delk tracks. All right, so stop the screen sharing for a second, and we'll say a few words about the Delk track. The Delk print is a dino-intruded human track. So it's a place in the strata where the dinosaur had stepped into the human footprint. All right, so let's get to some of these comments that Bubblegum has left, because I see a lot of them here. Bubblegum says we got to take into account these non-biased government archaeologists having been recorded many times hiding fossils and from the public, and that's very true. They hide a lot of information. They have a monopoly on fossil research. There's no reason many nations are scrambling for Antarctica. I don't know about Antarctica, but yeah, they definitely have a monopoly. So the geologic column, that's where all the government funding goes to. When it goes towards researching geology and stuff, it promotes the theory of the geologic column and everything that goes with that. And none of the money is going towards like any other model. There are no legitimate competing models, which, that makes it unscientific in the first place, because you're dealing with circumstantial evidence. If you're going to claim that all these, animals evolved, from the lower ones to the higher ones, I think that you need a little more physical evidence, like maybe get some transitional fossils first of all, and then provide evidence that one kind can change into another. But we're not going to stray from the topic here. All right. Bubblegum, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the comments. If you have any more questions, anybody, you just put them in the comment section and I'll get to them. And then anybody who wants to join the chat, let me pin it to the top. The link will be provided in the live comment section. So I'm pinning it to the top. Oh. So the link is pinned to the top of the chat. If you want to come into the stream, if you're a skeptic, or if you think alike, like me, and believe that these are legitimate tracks, you want to say something about it, anybody is welcome to join the stream. But back to the Delk track. Let me get a drink here. So the Delk print is a dino-intruded human track. It has been subjected to 800 X-rays in CT scan procedure, and technicians concluded it is uncarved and unaltered. The Willett print is a human track found along the river in a place where Dinosaur State Valley Park is located today. So the Willett print, the Delk print, and the Burdick tract. These are all, originally excavated strata from the Biloxi River, limestone, you know, and they're on display at Creation Evidence Museum. A lot of people say that they're like hoaxes, but again, they have a monopoly on the fossil record research program. They've not published any of this for everybody to, make their own decisions. And so there's three of them, three tracks. And, people that want like, sometimes they would say, because we have the tracks and we have photographic evidence, of the human tracks and the dinosaur tracks intersecting, photographic evidence, just close ups of the actual human footprint. We know that it's a human footprint. The rocks have been subjected to, x rays, and stone experts, have examined them and cross sectioned them. And there's no reason to dispute the legitimacy of them, especially since we find them all over the world. And, you could subject these supposed hoaxes to the same tests as legitimate ones, and they're going to check out. So there's no reason to dispute it. Picture's worth 1,000 words, and we have worth 1,000 words. Good night. But we have photographic evidence, video footage. There's, footprints in stone is a good documentary to watch. We want video footage, of people actually, walking in the tracks. So I don't know what you could ask for, like in a court of law, if this came down to like an honest judge, making a decision on whether or not, uh, for instance, it could be taught in science class that humans and dinosaurs live together. I mean, I don't see how it could be disputed. At least you got to give it a chance, like it's a fair model, because what they're suggesting is that they didn't. Dinosaurs went extinct, and that the humans lived. We evolved like recently within the last 10 million years. So dinosaurs and humans would have never lived together. That's their story, which has a lot of holes in itself. What, like, one of the theories for the dinosaurs going extinct is that they farted themselves to death. So if they publish that in a peer-reviewed, scientific literature, I don't see why we can't publish the theory that humans may have actually lived with dinosaurs. There's a lot of bias in the scientific community, and I am personally dedicated to stopping that bias. So now we're going to go back to the Delta print. Okay. Share the screen again. What's the story with the Delta tracks? In discussion with creationists and thorough internet hunting, I was made aware of Delta tracks, human dinosaur tracks overlapping, and on YouTube there's a CT scan demonstration that a layman like myself appears to make sense. How do I argue against it? And then here's a comment section. You tell the truth and say these are footprints, are not human and dinosaur at the same time. At best, the people showing this evidence are badly mistaken. At worst, they are faking evidence. So there's a claim right there that it's just faking evidence. Well, that's pretty compelling. I mean, if you have video footage, if you have the rock, you can subject it to the same test, whatever test that you want. The rock is there on display. The Wikipedia article contains interesting information, interesting links. Delk tracks seem to be crude fakes. Crude fakes. But CT scans seems to check out, that it wasn't carved or altered. Seems to check out, in the cross sectioning of the Burdick tracks, that there is pressure disturbance underneath the heels and the toes. I don't see why you would question this. Anyways, You decide for yourself if you believe that dinosaur and human tracks have been found together, but I'm deeply compelled to believe that they are, and that more will be discovered if the evidence isn't destroyed or hidden before then. So that's my prediction. Coming soon to a city near you, they're going to report that dinosaur and humans lived at the same time as a result of seeing their tracks together in the same layer of strata, which will probably check out with radiometric dates to be around 65 million years old, which would mean that humans did not evolve in the time frame that they said they would, and I'm sure that they'll push back the evolution of the primates back to the time of the dinosaurs, or they'll say that dinosaurs were somehow still around 10 million years ago, whatever they have to do to patch up their theory. But it is actually evidence that the dinosaurs, lived together with man before there was a global flood. And then they went extinct sometime after they got off of the ark. The reason why their tracks are found in the mud is because they were running, you know, together in the same area through the same mud until an avalanche of mud coming from a global flood rapidly covers up the area and preserves the tracks that will later turn to stone, and then all of that dirt and rock will be removed, exposing those layers when the Biloxi River floods, and that we can see them today. That's a result of the global flood of humans and dinosaurs, a world that had both of them in it. So that will conclude this after show. It's going to be a short one because nobody has joined in into the stream, but that's okay. We will see you next time. God bless America. I'm out.